Hello, this is Zach Malash presenting for the Group 6 GOT Ice Cream Visualization. As a team, we focused on 4 business areas when making our GOT ice cream visualization. One of which was the general sales that we see based on the highest value suppliers. We want to make sure that we can identify the top 6 brands and focus as much effort as we can to cultivating our relationships with those suppliers in order to try and create higher probabilities of mutually advantageous situations in the future and make sure that those relationships are properly maintained moving forward. Additionally, by knowing this, we will be able to help the marketing department by targeting ad expenses in such a way that our revenue will be maximized based on the ads that we purchase. We can look at this both at the store and the brand level when we're looking at how we're targeting our various customers. Additionally, we want to look from an HR point of view at how much staff we're going to need on any given day. We can find external predictors such as temperature in order to know what's coming up and make sure we have enough staff to take care of any rushes. Also, we want to look at, from an operations point of view, we want to look at which stores we want to expand should the opportunity present itself. This is a sneak peek of the dashboard that we'll be seeing. We have the sales in the top left. We have the advertising in the top 2 spots in the right column, as well as the brand breakdown in the middle left based on brand and store. In the bottom left, we have our HR dashboard for predictions. And in the bottom right, we have operations in order to see what square footage we can use based on sales. Here's a visualization for us to see what the major brands are that we want to look at. Here we can see that Homemade, Edie's, Mayfield, Graeter's, Breyers, and Stone Ridge are the 6 major players in our store. As such, they're the 6 brands we want to focus on when making our evaluations in order to make sure that we're not overwhelmed with data. And they're also the suppliers that we want to focus on making better relationships with. Here we can see those 6 brands that I just mentioned based on their advertising effectiveness. Marketing can use this in order to determine what ads we should spend for each company. For example, Graeter's has a greater than 64% sales where there's no sale involved at all. Graeter's is just making the sale on its name alone. As a result, even though we want their marketing revenue, there's a lot of non-sale opportunity here for sales. If we're looking at Breyers, over half of Breyers' sales are on TPR sales. Given this knowledge, we can know that we want to focus TPR sales toward Breyers, and the same goes for both Stone Ridge and Homemade. Meanwhile, Mayfield thrives in the weekly category, so we're going to try and push them toward weekly advertising in order to maximize our profits with them. Here we can see the breakdown by store of each of the 6 brands. By knowing this, we can know which brands we need to push to which stores so that our inventory mirrors as closely as possible the actual sales that customers are requesting. Looking at the 2 neighborhood stores that sell the most, we have Hyde Park and Crescent Springs. We can see that Hyde Park and Crescent Springs sell about the same amount of Graeter's in Mayfield. However, Hyde Park has a much greater percentage of Graeter's, while Crescent Springs has a much greater percentage of Mayfield. We probably want to take this as a sign that we want to push more Graeter's toward Hyde Park and replace Mayfield with that Graeter's. This way we can send the Mayfield to the Crescent Springs in order to maximize what inventory we have there so we're not running out of Mayfield in the Crescent Springs store. We can also apply this technique toward all the other stores, noting also that Hebron is the lowest selling store by a landslide, so we can probably focus a little bit less on them if we need to make a tiebreaker decision. Looking at store sales by ad type, we can see that there are 2 major breakdowns here. We have about the top half where the breakdown is about 40% non-sale and about 40% TPR, give or take about 10%. Additionally, the bottom half is about 40% to 25% for that same breakdown. Crescent Springs Even though it's in the top half, it follows an advertising pattern similar to the bottom half. Noting that we have these two separate advertising methods, we can have two separate strategies for how to divvy up our ads and make the most revenue possible based on how we're spending for those ads. Looking at the breakdown of sales by quantity, as well as by the temperature, we can see that there is a strong correlation between the max temperature and the quantity of ice cream sold. Once the max temperature starts going down, the quantity starts going down at about the same rate. As a result, our HR company can look at the forecast and know how many workers we're going to be needing for the upcoming week, possibly weeks, depending on the reliability of the forecast. Additionally, there are two peaks in early February that we'll come back to in the very near future. Here we have a breakdown of sales by store square footage. Looking at this breakdown, we can see that there are four groups based on the trend as well as the confidence intervals that for these predictions. We have the gray group, where the group is operating outside of the confidence interval, but they're overperforming. As a result, we can assume that the sales here are not driven by square footage, and increasing square footage may not have a positive effect on those sales. Additionally, the orange are outside the confidence interval in the negative way. We need to have these stores produce more revenue, but increasing the store square footage is not going to be the best way to have this happen. The blue inside the confidence interval can then be split up into two additional groups. Those that are performing well because they have more square footage, and those that are performing well also, but they have less square footage. We should look at those three light blue dots, Fort Mitchell, Independence, and Taylor Mill, as the stores that we should look at immediately putting more store square footage in if we want to increase revenue. And now jumping back over to the dashboard, we can see that we have a functional Tableau dashboard. And looking here, we can see this is the trend that I mentioned not too long ago, where in the early part of February, there are peaks that correspond with just before Valentine's Day. So even though the temperature is not going up, this analysis has allowed us to give HR a heads up on the need for additional staff during those times. This has been Zach Malash. Thanks for watching.